Welcome, my name is Colleen Tauke and I'm the sewing specialist here at Fons & Porter. In this Quilting Quickly tutorial, I'm going to show you how to put together the blocks for the quilt Apple Farm. If you'd like to purchase this pattern, please visit our website. We're going to be using 5-inch squares of wonderful kids prints today to make this quilt, and then we're going to be adding a white. It gives our eye a place to rest in the quilt, and you can see these wonderful pinwheels kind of dancing through the quilt. And we're going to be able to make those from the 5-inch squares quite quickly. Here we go. From each of the 5-inch squares, we're going to match up with a 5-inch square of white fabric, and we're going to be marking it so that we can make 8 triangle squares at one time. Now, if you haven't seen this method before, this is how we go about doing that. We're using a 1/4-inch seam marker here, and it's placed on the fabric from corner to corner. There's a black heavy line down the center of the tool, and then the tool is the width of 1/4 inch out on each side of that. So we're going to be marking stitching lines on the back side of the white fabric. And those will be our guides for stitching in that direction. Then we're also going to be marking it in the opposite direction. So both of the diagonals will be marked with stitching lines. Placing the tool again, a simple line. You can use a mechanical pencil would be good. This is a friction pen that with heat just disappears when you touch it with an iron. So we've marked, put markings on there for our stitching lines. We're going to layer that up then right sides together with our print fabric. And then we're going to stitch. Got one stitched here. I've stitched it in red so that it stands out for you to see, and just followed exactly along those lines in both directions. Now comes the cutting process, and it seems like we've just sewn these 2 pieces of fabric together nice and tight. Now how does that turn into 8 triangle squares? But what we can do, move this out of the way here so that the spin mat can work, and you can either use a rotating mat like this, or you could just use a smaller mat on top of your cutting surface so you can twirl it and easily cut from a safe angle. Now what we're going to do is, using a ruler, we're going to go in and we're going to cut the 5-inch square in half this direction. Then we're going to come back and cut it this way. We're going to dice it 4 times, so hang with me here. We're going to do 2 1/2, which is half of 5. Go down through the middle this direction. Then we're going to rotate just slightly, and then we're going to cut the 2 1/2-inch mark. It should, if your sewing is done accurately, you should be cutting right through the intersections of your threads. Now we're going to cut down between the red thread markings, and I've got a short ruler here, but the little trick here is part way through we can just, don't move the blade, just move the ruler, and it goes down through. So we're going to be dicing this into the 8 triangle squares. Now the accuracy down between those threads, close counts because you've already done your stitching, so as long as you leave, try to shoot down between the stitching as best you can. Now what we've created is 8 triangle squares of yellow and white here, a print with a white background. So you have 8 of them by the time you open all of them up. So what we're going to do is take them to the ironing board. We're going to set the seams. Always want to warm that fabric up first by setting the seams, and then open up the triangle square. Just use the iron to walk it over. Now the little trick is that you can then lay the next one on there, kind of let the ironing board do the work. The ironing board gets warmed up so that it helps you in the ironing process. And you can just kind of layer one over the top of the other until you have all 8 of them pressed nice and neat. Like that. And you just work your way down through the entire stack, and you have a bunch of triangle squares ready to go. Now I said we yielded 8. What we need to do is use 4 of them to make the little pinwheel block. So we will be able to, from each of these processes, you'll be able to make 2 pinwheel blocks. But if I lay this beside here, you can see it's a little bit oversized. follow your directions. These are to be trimmed to 2 inches. And I'm going to come back in. We're going to do just a little bit of trimming. Because that 8 at a time is so efficient, we can then easily come in and size these down to the 2.5. I'll lay this direction. What I'm using here is a square up ruler, and you can purchase this through our website. On the back side, you'll see this yellow triangle. It's kind of a shield that's stuck to the back side of the ruler so that I can bump that up against my seam allowance where the 2 pieces are joined, and it will hold it right on that diagonal. So then I can line up the 2-inch mark. As long as these are nice and straight, it could actually be slid in a little. I could trim all 4 sides, but as I see here, as I come in against the seam allowance, 2 sides are really nice and neat already, so I can just trim up the other 2 and have the exact block that I need. So then you would just work your way down through. I'll take off the dog ear on this side. Work your way down through all 8 of, or all of your triangle squares if you're doing all of them at once in big processing. So you'll have pieces that look like this, and then they're ready to arrange. Once these would be trimmed, they would be ready then to be arranged into the pinwheel block. So follow your diagrams in your pattern for the placement so that your pinwheel blocks then are all arranged properly. And you can see how this one just is nice and neat and tidy now that it's been trimmed. But the arrangement then would be like this. You would join the first 2 in the top row, then the bottom row, and then the rows together to make the little pinwheel blocks. Quite a few pinwheel blocks. You'll get really good at that process before you're done. I've got another here in another color. And as you see in the quilt behind me, some of your 5-inch squares are going to be left intact because those are the ones that are kind of the center of your block. The 5-inch or the small pinwheels then kind of become almost cornerstones around your block. So you kind of see here as we get going, the top of our quilt starts with a pinwheel, then we have this rectangle background fabric, pinwheel, we'll keep going, and the next row would be a rectangle, a square of the print, rectangle, and it would keep on going. So that is Apple Farm. If you'd like to see more of our videos, please visit our website. Thanks for joining me today.